CNN's Jim Acosta tries to grill Vivek Ramaswamy on foreign policy, and spoiler, it does not end well for CNN. I'm Vince with Resist the Mainstream. If you enjoy our content, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel so that we can keep bringing you videos like this. And without further ado, let's get into it. Here is the America First view of foreign policy versus that of the neocon and neoliberal establishment. Check it out.
Let's talk about China. You talked about China. You proposed to radio host Hugh Hewitt this week that the U.S. should help Taiwan deter a Chinese invasion until the U.S. has achieved, quote, semiconductor independence. Does it really serve our long-term interest to say we support territorial integrity until a country is no longer useful to us?
I think that moving from strategic ambiguity to strategic clarity is actually a good thing for the United States to both advance our interests and to avoid war, as well as to be a more trusted partner. I don't think it's credible when we make hollow proclamations to defend democracy or to defend territorial sovereignty as a principle when, in fact, we choose that principle selectively anyway. I think it's far more credible for us to be honest, to say that I will, as the next U.S. president, I stand for advancing American interests, period. That allows other nations to actually trust us. Just as we can trust them to follow their self-interest, they can trust us to follow ours.
But are you sending a signal that an allied
neoconservatism or liberal hegemony?
But are you sending a signal that an allied democracy could be taken over by another power just because they're no longer making something that we need?
Stupid
question.
Let's
get real, Jim. I mean, the fact of the matter is our current posture towards Taiwan is that the U.S. embraces the one China policy in the status quo. The standard protocol is a U.S. president isn't even supposed to pick up a phone call from the leader of Taiwan. In fact, when Trump did it, they laughed at him as though he was an outsider rube. And so the reality is that line of reasoning that somehow you're now going to call them an allied nation selectively to push back on my vision of strategic clarity is just a farce and betrays exactly what our current posture is in the first place. What I'm bringing to our foreign policy is honesty that will advance our interests. I'm moving.
And here's the simple reality. As much as Jim Acosta tries to accuse people like Trump or Vivek of being soft on dictators, they want to appease our enemies. Ukraine got attacked by Russia under Biden's presidency. Israel got attacked by Hamas under Biden's presidency. The threat of a Chinese invasion of Taiwan has never been higher than it has under Biden's presidency. So the fact is, what Trump wants, what Vivek wants, what the America First MAGA crowd wants is peace. We want to avoid the wars around the world, but we want to avoid them by strength. You can posture about this all you want. Your foreign policy would be reckless, but the current foreign policy that I see from Biden-Harris has been the one that has allowed all these wars to begin around the world. So I think it's just complete crap. It's complete nonsense. You can talk about, oh, hypothetically, you might appease dictators. Biden's foreign policy has been good for the dictators because it has allowed them to invade. It's done nothing to deter war, etc., etc.
What I'm bringing to our foreign policy is honesty that will advance our interests. I'm moving from strategic ambiguity to be strategically very clear that we will defend Taiwan until we achieve semiconductor independence. I expect that to happen by the end of my first term, by 2028.
But then China can have Taiwan?
Our commitments necessarily will change.
But then China can have Taiwan?
To be clear, after that, by being clear, not necessarily. What that really means is Taiwan, between now and then, can actually spend what it should be spending on national defense. Taiwan spends less than 2% of GDP on its military. That is shameful. Taiwan needs to be spending over 4% of its own GDP. But by being strategically clear, we give Taiwan a chance to build up its own defense capabilities. And China will also know that it is absolutely not in China's interest, not any rational actor in China would want to make that move before 2028. In the meantime, what am I going to do? Achieve semiconductor independence for our nation and also build up our own homeland defense capabilities. That's something that's badly lacking. Super EMP defenses, cyber defenses, nuclear missile defenses. But if we're at that point by 2028, along with semiconductor independent, then no, I don't expect to want to send our sons and daughters in this country to die to fight over somebody else's territorial dispute. And I think that that's exactly what this Chinese Civil War dating back to 1949 was all about. There are two reasons why China might go after Taiwan. One is to lord over an economic gun over the United States. I refuse to let that happen.
But 100%, and I think that's the part that is missed here. a big reason why Taiwan would be strategically beneficial to China. It's a tiny island, right? What is that going to do? Well, it's because Taiwan is making the world's semiconductors. So the whole world basically needs Taiwan. So if China takes it, hey, they can hold a bargaining chip over the United States. But if we are America first, if we make our own semiconductors and we manage to be reliant on that, then China also has less of an incentive to waste so much life and potentially fail in an invasion of Taiwan. But of course, they say we've not thought through our foreign policy. And again, let me reiterate, the sheer fact of the matter is this: all these wars, all the things that are supposedly benefiting the dictators here, they've happened under Biden's presidency. There's a reason why Russia didn't invade Ukraine when Trump was president. There's a reason why the war didn't break out in Israel. It is because actually conservative America first foreign policy is better. It's better for America. It's also better for the world because it keeps the world out of wars.
The second is sorting out business dating back to 1949 between Chiang Kai-shek and Mao Zedong. That's not something that I'm going to send our sons and daughters to settle.
And you've also suggested that Vladimir Putin be allowed to keep parts of Ukraine as part of a way to solve that conflict.
Again, let me reiterate. Under Biden and Harris, because she's the nominee now, Vladimir Putin has kept parts of Ukraine. He's literally taken the parts of Ukraine. So the posturing, oh my gosh, you're soft on dictators. Really? Because all I've seen is Putin gaining more territory under Biden.
But if he wants parts of Poland,
you leave out the most important part of that deal.
More of Ukraine next. Aren't you letting some of these authoritarian leaders off the hook?
What actually advances? Far from it. I think that the Biden administration is so stubbornly attached to the idea of getting Xi Jinping to drop Vladimir Putin. What I think we need to be doing is get Vladimir Putin to drop Xi Jinping. Just like Nixon went to China in 1972, I think Putin is like the new Mao. I will visit Moscow and I will pull Russia out of its military alliance with China. The Russia-China military alliance is the single greatest military threat that we face today. Hypersonic missile capabilities, nuclear capabilities in Russia, far ahead of us or China. A naval capacity in China ahead of ours, combined with an economy that we depend on for our modern way of life. Those two nations are in a military alliance with one another, and nobody in either political party is talking about it. Worst of all, our engagement in Ukraine is further driving Russia into China's arms.
True.
So my foreign policy centers on weakening that alliance. That advances American interests.
But you would let Putin have
that
parts
is how
of
we
Ukraine.
actually secure peace.
But you would let Putin have parts of Ukraine.
I would freeze the current lines.
Once again, you know who's let Putin have parts of Ukraine? Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. The war started under what? Their watch, okay? Now, we're being realistic and we're saying, well, I mean, you know, it's most likely there's going to have to be a peace deal. The war is at a stalemate, and the war only started because of the last administration, or the current one, I should say. And then, but how dare you? What are you even talking about?
I would freeze the current lines of control, and that would leave parts of the Donbas region with Russia. I would also further make a commitment that NATO will not admit Ukraine to NATO. But there are even greater wins that I will get for the United States in return. The top of the list. No, our goal should not be for Putin to lose. Our goal should be for America to win. That's what we have forgotten in this country, is that driving Russia into the ground is not a U.S. strategic goal. A U.S. strategic goal is to secure peace and prosperity for Americans. And so, you know what? I do think many of those military resources being used to protect against an invasion across somebody else's border halfway around the world should be used to protect against the invasion across our own southern border right here at home. And in the meantime, yes, we need to pull Russia apart from China instead of driving Russia further into China's hands. And I think that we have a foreign policy establishment in both parties, frankly, Republican Party and Democratic Party alike, that behaves as though we're still in the Cold War of the last century, forgetting that the USSR does not exist anymore, and that the real threat we face today is communist China, which is that much stronger when Vladimir Putin is in Xi Jinping's camp.
All right, Vivek Ramaswamy, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Jim Acosta would rather Joe Biden not look stupid because he lost the war to Putin than actually explain why any of this that's going on in Ukraine and the reason we keep continuing to fund the war is actually benefiting a single strategic interest of America. But here's the reality. The day that Donald Trump is elected, I guarantee you this, peace deals to end the war in Ukraine and probably even the war in the Middle East will immediately begin, okay? And that's what they really fear. They fear a world at peace. They fear the idea that the military-industrial complex will not continue to benefit from sending a bunch of people in random countries to die for the puppet masters here in DC and, you know, for basically essentially no reason. That said, folks, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. How do you think Vivek handled the debate? And until next time, I've been Vince with Resist the Mainstream. Peace.